Hi, I'm Bill Reiner. I'm a child psychiatrist and urologist, which alone may make some of you think that I'm a little bit nuts, but that's okay. Today I want to talk about kids with exstrophy, and I want to talk about navigating relationships. That may seem like a simple topic, but it's actually very complex, so I'm going to break it into several different talks. But what I want to talk about overall is going to be navigating relationships with friends and also with peers, which is a little different. I also want to talk about navigating relationships with teachers and also adults, not that teachers aren't adults, but other adults, and navigating relationships with doctors and with nurses. But I also want to bring up relationship that a child growing up with exstrophy has with herself or himself. Now, in regards to this, it changes a little bit with age and with the level of development. Notice I didn't use stage because there are no stages of development. It's a constant, although changeable, but a continuing process is probably the way I ought to put it, right on through your life. Clearly, children develop more rapidly than adults, but nonetheless, we all develop. I think it's probably useful to break it down for the parents, but also for the kids, into the preschool ages and maybe the early school age years. So maybe say roughly four to about 8 or 9, and then to talk about roughly 9 or maybe 10 up to about 12 or 13, or at the brink of what the child might see as real adolescence, although most kids have actually begun adolescence before that time. And then to talk about early and mid-adolescence, focusing more on, say, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, and 16, kind of plus minus. And then to talk about late adolescence, so 17 and 18-year-olds, maybe 16, and going right on up into what some people call, and I think it's a useful term, emerging adulthood. I think I've given you some variability in the ages because different people develop at different rates, and therefore some people are more into late adolescence when they're even 14 or 15. Most of us not until we're 16 or 17 or 18, and the same with the other ages. So there is some variability. Now, those relationships and how one navigates those relationships is important for everybody, not just kids with exstrophy. Most parents and most kids don't think much about it, but the parents of kids with exstrophy may notice some issues that the kids have as they grow up. They may be difficult relationships, they may be difficult issues in dealing with relationships, they may be just fine. Again, everybody is a little bit different. So what I'm going to talk about is going to be basically a set of generalities, and the generalities are going to apply more or less to a given child or a given adolescent or a given adult for that matter, based on their own personality and the rate of their development. As we go through some of these sessions, I want to talk about navigating relationships, and you can see why it is a navigation issue, because the child needs to kind of weave through their social relationships, and as they get older, their social relationships grow. Their entire environment grows literally in size and in scope. So it becomes more complicated, although in some ways, as they get into adolescence, they've dealt with some of the critical issues, and it may not get a whole lot more complicated. Just as an example, for the parents, I think it's important to know, especially when your kids with exstrophy are young, no, they're not going to be taking their clothes off and showering with the other kids in junior high or high school. First of all, because I don't think very many kids do that anymore, although in my day you had to. But also because they aren't going to do it. They wouldn't do it, and that's fine. There's no reason why they have to. So that's not a worry, and I don't think that that needs to be a worry, except in very unusual circumstances, and those are situations that we can talk about again specifically when we deal with some of these other issues that I've got on the list and that I want to talk about. So I think it's important to realize that in navigating relationships, it's important to see the child and herself or himself and how each of these kids deal with themselves. And then it's important to see how they deal with friends and with peers, which is again a little bit different because you're typically more intimate with friends than you are with peers, I would think. I think teachers and adults are not such a big issue for the most part, but there's some areas where we can get our kids into trouble as parents. So we have to be careful that we don't get our kids into trouble. And dealing with doctors and nurses has to do both with personal experience of the child and of the parents, our own built-in anxieties as parents, as we deal with the doctors and nurses and help our children too, as well as with personality. And ultimately, personality is a huge part of all of these things. There are kids, adults, anybody, there are people that have personalities that just put up with a lot of stuff. I could use another word there, but we'll just use that as a slang expression. So some people deal with difficult experiences tolerably well, no matter what the situation. Some of us deal with difficult circumstances very poorly. Some of us don't deal with any circumstances unless circumstances are practically perfect, and all the rest of us are in between. And those are the kinds of outliers on the left and the right, so to speak, that one group will deal with issues well, one group with issues not very well, but most of us are in between. So the experiences and how we learn to cope with those experiences are really important. And there are no destructive, destroying, catastrophic experiences. Ultimately, we can all learn from all of our experiences, and sometimes kids will look at experiences more catastrophically, well, almost always they will, than the parents do, but the parents can help because we've all been through those catastrophic experiences ourselves in our youth. So I think that we can give a great deal of assistance to our kids in those regards in particular. And the kids who are easy are always going to be easy, but they're going to need advice and help and coping skills also. So those are the issues that I want to deal with as we move on through some more sessions where we deal with each of these groups of people, and I've given somewhat artificial groupings, but that's okay. You can group them differently yourselves based on your own child, or if you're the child, on your own experiences. And we'll deal with these as we move on and separate them out. We'll have to deal, I think, with different age groups at different times. So that's how we'll start. Thank you very much.